Sony investor news, Atari winning the console wars, and new Embracer leadership, plus lots more on today's episode of TouchPad. Hello and welcome to Cross Circle Squared. I am Benny Gerkman, and this is TouchPad, your daily video game news show. Short show for you today, a lot of business stuff, a lot of kind of news stories, so let's get you what you need to know and get you out of here. First up on the dock today involves the recent Sony corporate strategy meeting, and it didn't have much in terms of PlayStation news. It had a little bit, and I'll cover what they talked about here. First off, as part of the meeting, Sony released this video, which, oh man, it's this weird concept video set 100 years in the future, and they have this controller, as you're seeing on screen. It's maybe the most horrendous looking controller I've ever seen. It has this hologram screen on it. Obviously, I don't think this is any real product Sony is planning, but I do think it is funny with just how ugly and unusable it looks. Yet, it's very futuristic, but also very similar to controllers we have nowadays. This isn't in my script, but I also want to show the phone they showed a little bit before. Guys, what is that? Come on. But yeah, like I said, it's very futuristic video, very, very concept-y, but the controller still looks like exactly the same as any controller nowadays, just with weird holes in it. They in terms of actual news, though, they did talk about their live action IP that they're making in terms of God of War and Horizon. So at least for now, we've known that those were in development, but seemingly confirmed that they're still in development. Again, that nothing might happen with those. A lot of TV shows get right into the pre-production / writing stage, and then they die there. But as of right now, at least, they're still working on those. In a slide, they also talked about something called LBE, which is location-based entertainment. Now, this is something that we've seen Sony dabble in already, but it's something I personally hope they continue to look into. What exactly is location-based entertainment? Sony describes it as this infusing facilities around the world by combining Sony IP, creating immersive experiences. A terrible, terrible way to explain it, but essentially what it is just theme park rides, themed hotels, or think the Last of Us haunted house we saw last year, or potentially live shows or experiences, that sort of thing. If this slide is to be believed, we could be seeing more in this area moving forward. And I do think that's a good direction to head in. I think it gets a lot of outside people interested in core gaming, much like how the Last of Us show and the haunted house likely got a lot of people to get into the games. Having live adaptations of games or rides like the Uncharted ride in Spain might get people to come play the games the IP is based on, more than just a general way marketing is done, like a TV commercial or something. And I think a lot of time when a lot of people think about gaming, they're going to think about Madden, they're going to think about FIFA, but getting these brands and these IP out to normal people that really aren't going to experience it because they're not watching YouTube, they're not on Twitter, that kind of thing. I think that that is a good way to kind of market and expand the overall global audience of these games. They also talked about kind of just their indie development goals. They mentioned a lot about trying to grow that sector in a way that seemed a little bit reminiscent of PS3 Sony. They also talked about global expansion into game development. They have 5 projects in development right now with the India Hero project. That's an Indian independent game development support system. And they also have the Sony Innovation Fund in Africa. All right, that's about it for Sony, though. Again, like I said, just some nice things to mention, nothing really hard news. In terms of some hard news, though, Atari has bought the IP and the rights to Intellivision. If you don't know what Intellivision are, I don't blame you. Essentially, the Xbox and PlayStation 40 years ago, the 2 biggest consoles at the time. Atari purchased the naming rights and the brand from the Intellivision Entertainment LLC, as well as about 200 games and their IP. The ex-Intellivision company has been working towards creating their new console, the Intellivision Amico, which will now have to have a rebrand. Although that project kind of looked dead for a long time. Although in researching that device and trying to find if it was still really a thing, I found an IGN article from 2022 where they reported that the company's CEO said work is still ongoing. So as of 2 years ago, at least it's still alive. Surprisingly, on the other side of the wall, Atari, they're also still alive, but recently, really all they've done is like release cheap emulation-based Atari flashback consoles, and they also desperately tried to break into crypto and blockchain and NFTs, as any of these old sort of out-the-door companies try. Atari does own Night Dive Studios as well, and they also own a kind of, well, at this point, Atari Classic Collection developer Digital Eclipse. And otherwise, Atari has been fairly active in the IP licensing world. So even if they're not doing much internally on their own or developing their own games, really, the companies they own and the IP that they own are going out and doing some work for them. So we could be seeing updated versions or even new entries with this Intellivision purchase of those classic games themselves. All right, let's go over and talk about Embracer, where their CFO and deputy CEO will be giving up the spot. One guy holds both positions. He leaves after 5 years of being in the roles, and no word yet on just how much money he gets to leave with in his pockets, but he does leave a great reputation and imprint of closures and divestments and layoffs and cancellations and horrible PR and destroying brands and ruining people's careers. So I imagine he'll have a new job in a week. Embracer has also released financials for the year where they've achieved a net sales mark of $3.9 billion, but they still have $1.5 billion in debt. In terms of successes and failures, they mentioned the Tomb Raider remasters as a key point of good growth, as well as the release of Dead Island 2 and Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. However, Alone in the Dark is cited as not reaching expectations, which is maybe not unsurprising, but a little sad. The game looked decent, just kind of, it's survival horror, so it's not going to have a huge audience to begin with. And it was a little bit lower budget, so I don't really know how many people it interested. But to me, that game mattered. In terms of their overall portfolio, Embracer is publishing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Killing Floor 3, and apparently 70 other games by the end of fiscal year 25. So we'll see if those games, as well as the aggressive layoffs and the company sales, will keep the Embracer boat afloat. I say boat in my script, but it's more like a hastily strapped together wooden escape raft, if anything. In terms of layoff news, our favorite site of the year, Games Industry Layoffs, is now reporting over 10,000 industry jobs lost this year alone. That's only about 400 away from 2023's record high of 10,500. We're at 10,100 at the moment. And that's already dwarfing 2022's high of 8,500. Recent layoffs include fall damage creators of multiplayer PvP FPS Alara Prime, which I've never heard of. They filed for bankruptcy, and they've now laid off about 50 people. In other layoff news, there's also Hatchery Games. They're a Quebec-based indie studio, and they're laying off 13. In other news, before we're done today, we knew about this beforehand, but is now finally confirmed that Call of Duty will be called Call of Duty Black Ops 6. That's after Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War took the 5th number, but not the 5th title. We kind of knew this. I think a lot of people thought it was maybe going to be called Call of Duty Black Ops Gulf War, as Cold War was called with a similar naming convention, but no, we're back to numbers. For some reason, whatever, it doesn't really matter. And also, Devolver Digital will be holding their yearly dry humor-filled showcase this year. That'll be on June 15th. All right, no releases yet again today, but we do see the release of Paper Mario, the Thousand Year Door remake. That's tomorrow. All right, and that is all of your news for May 23rd. Like I said, pretty easy day, not much hard news, but I hope you found some interest in what I found today. But that's all I have for you. So as always, I'm Benny Gerkman. This is Cross Circle Squared, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.